Okay, here we are with the Used Companion magazine, and this is November 14th of 1895. And today we're going to read to you History and the Stars. It'll be read to you by Jennifer.
A very interesting investigation has lately been made by Mr. F.C. Penrose at the suggestion of the orientation of the ancient Greek temples. The orienting of a building is the process of facing it toward the east or some other predetermined point of the compass. It has been shown by Mr. Lockyer and Herr Nissen that the Egyptian and Greek temples were so oriented that the rising or setting of some chosen star situated in a line with the axis of the temple and visible from the adytum, or most sacred place within it, would serve to give warning of sunrise to the priests. This was before the invention of clocks. But in consequence of the precision of the equinoxes, which cause a complete revolution of the heavens around the pole of the ecliptic in about 25,000 years, the rising and setting points of the stars are slowly changing, so that a star which at its rising shone into the adytum of a particular temple a few thousand years ago does so no longer. But it is possible by calculating backward to say when the star did rise in a line with the axis of the temple, and thus, as Mr. Penrose thinks, to ascertain the date when the temple was built. In applying this principle, Mr. Penrose has found evidence that, in many cases, when the star chosen for a particular temple had worked around from its original position, through the effects of precision, either a new doorway was constructed, or a new temple, so oriented as it to face the star again, was built alongside the old one. He thinks he has been able to identify the stars that were sacred to certain temples. Sirius, for instance, was the star that shone upon the mysterious rites enacted in the celebrated temple at Eleusis. The Eleusinian ceremonies occurred at midnight, and in that case there were no connection with the rising sun. The Pleiades were the heralds of sunrise for two temples of Minerva at Athens and one at Sunium. Spica, the bright star in Virgo, was sacred to the temples of Juno. Antares, the fiery red star, which we now see in the southern heavens in midsummer, was the chosen luminaire for some of the temples of Jupiter. This investigation of the connection between the stars and the famous temples of antiquity is one of the most interesting of the many services which astronomy has performed in throwing light upon history.
Well, that was really nice, learning all about the stars. All right, be sure to follow me, join me as a friend, and we'll bring you some more stories. All right, bye-bye now. Looking at the night robes advertised. Yeah, but it was only 89 cents.
And there's wool soap.
Wool soap, yeah. Oh my goodness, something nice. Okay, this is from the Used Companion magazine of November 14th, 1895. Okay, and we're going to read to you. We were just looking at that because that is definitely an old robe. How do you like that? Kind of cute to see some of the old advertising and stuff that they have. But we're going to read to you Too Perfect is our next story. And it'll be read to you by Jennifer.
When a vacancy occurs in the French Academy, candidates for admission to that distinguished body have to call on the 39 serving immortals, as the academicians are called, to solicit their votes. M. Ernest Legouve, the French poet and novelist, gives an entertaining description of the different varieties of candidates. He writes, During the 30 years of my membership in the Academy, I have seen many candidates. There is the one who always praises himself. There is the one who always condemns his rivals. There is the one who is sure of 20 votes. This variety is numerous. There is the maniacally discouraged candidate whom one has to encourage. He is the only weeper of the company. And there is the perfect candidate. The perfect candidate never talks to you of himself, but always of yourself. The perfect candidate knows the number of editions of each of your books. If some 25 years ago you wrote a successful play, he recalls to you the passage that were most applauded. If a newspaper has published a complimentary article about you, the perfect candidate has read it and brings it with him. On New Year's Day, you see a box of beautiful flowers or bonbons arrive, addressed to your wife or daughter. You look at the card enclosed by the donor. It bears the name of the perfect candidate. I remember one of these kind. He was so amiable and so charming that we all said, this man never can be so perfect and accommodating as he is a candidate. Why should we take him from a position which he fills so admirably to put him into one in which he would perhaps only attain mediocrity? And we did not elect him.
Oh, wow, that's awful.
That is
I would think
stupid.
You would want that one. Yeah, that would be the one to go after. Jeez, that's terrible. Okay, stay tuned and we'll bring you some more. Be sure to sub me and we'll bring you more stories. I don't know, I think I would have taken the perfect one.
Well, I guess that's kind of demoting him. So
Demoting
they'd rather
him?
take one that they can make better?
No, he's already better. He's the perfect one.
So bad.
I know. I'll take
Let's not hire
I'll
him.
take the
He's
box
too
of
perfect.
chocolates though. All right. Bye-bye now. Nice commercial there at the Glenwood stove from way back when and stuff. This story here is Their Treasure. This is from the Youth Companions magazine of November 14th of 1895. And this story will be read to you by Jennifer.
The author of Marco, as it is, describes a visit paid by his wife to the harem of Cid Brico in Teuton. One incident of this visit will perhaps be thought amusing. The women, about 20 in number, were reclining upon couches, and at one end of the room a basket cradle was suspended from the ceiling in which lay a baby asleep. Mrs. Bonsale remained for nearly an hour, chatting with the woman, though neither side understood a word of the other language. The women were much amused by her costume, a riding habit, and insisted upon examining it in all its details. In return for her patience, they bought out the contents of their own wardrobes, which consisted of many colored silk and gold embroidered caftans, of lace and soft snowy hakes. But the great curiosity was reserved for the last. As Mrs. Bonsale turned to go, the woman led her into a small room in which something very carefully shrouded in old turban clothes was laying on the tiled table. They placed several black slaves as spies at all the entrances to the harem, and then carefully and cautiously unrobed the mysterious package. It proved to be a German looking-glass of a very cheap and unflattering variety. The women were greatly disappointed when the visitor evinced no surprise at the sight of the precious thing, and when it returned she showed them her own pocket glass. They almost mobbed her in their attempts to get possession of it. The large looking-glass was then carefully covered with the turban cloths and hidden away again, for Cid Brico, as an orthodox Moor, would not willingly permit such an iniquity to profane his house.
Okay. Interesting kind of story. Be sure to sub me, join me as a friend, and we'll bring you some more. Bye-bye now. Okay, this story we're going to read to you today from the Youth's Companion magazine, November 14th of 1895, is Obeying Orders. Now, that's a hard one now. I hope it's a good story because just curiosity of having that as a title inside of a magazine really sounds interesting. So let's see what they have. Obeying Orders. Read to you by Jennifer.
The late Professor Huxley used to enforce upon young men the lesson of definiteness by telling them a story of his own experience. He was attending a meeting of the British Association for the Advancement of Science at Belfast, Ireland. All the servants in the town assembled regularly at a certain hall. Professor Huxley, having been up late one evening, rose late in the morning and feared he should be late at the meeting. Coming out of his lodgings, he hailed one of the Irish vehicles known as an outside car and mounted it. "Now drive fast," he said to the driver, "for I am in a great hurry." Off went the driver at a mad pace, which almost threw the professor off his seat, and began charging along the road in a somewhat indefinite way. Presently it occurred to Huxley to say, as he held on for his life, "My good man, do you know where I want to go?" "No, your honor," answered the driver coolly. "You didn't tell me where to go, but anyway, I am driving fast."
Okay, when you give an order, make sure you are clear of what you are saying. Otherwise, who knows where you're going? That's a good one. I love that one. I remember when my son was real little and stuff, and I turned around and told him, you better make sure you wipe your feet. And so he just stood right there and he wiped his feet. I failed to tell him, go back to the rug and wipe your feet. So he wiped his feet in the middle of the floor. So it is very important when you give an order, if you expect them to obey, or they just obey, to be clear about the order you give. All right, be sure to sub me, join me as a friend. We'll bring you some more. Okay, we're reading you stories from the Youth's Companion magazine, November 14th of 1895. And this next story is Think of the Future. It'll be read to you by Jennifer.
Despite all that has been urged in behalf of sensible forest supervision in this country, the ruthless destruction goes on almost unabated. Only about a quarter of the timber cut year by year has its place supplied by new growth. It is easy to see how short a time will elapse at this rate before the land is bare and the streams dried up. Mr. Furneaux, Chief of the Forestry Division of the United States Department of Agriculture, estimates the value of timber land at $1,000 million. Surely this is a property worth caring for. Two plans for helping to put things on a sound basis have lately been proposed. Mr. Furneaux advocates a law establishing an American College of Forestry. Professor Sargent of Harvard suggests the establishment of a chair of forestry at West Point with the view of ultimately using the Army in part to preserve the forest. Perhaps both ideas might be carried out independently with good results. Certainly all possible education means should be used to place our people on a level as to information with those of France and Germany. Forest fires alone are said to destroy $10 million worth of timber annually. Intelligent forest wardens could prevent much of this. Waste the greedy cutting of large and small trees at one sweep destroys more than fires. If we are to have any forests left at all, the United States government and the several states must push vigorously the policy of funding and maintaining forest preserves.
All right, so even back then in the 1800s, they were worried about how much timber they would still have left for the future. So that was really smart and something for them to think about way back then, just as we do today. All right, be sure to sub me, join me as a friend. We'll bring you some more. Bye-bye now. Okay, here we are with the Used Companion magazine of 1895, and we're going to read to you the story, The Sword. And it will be read to you by Jennifer.
Mr. Baverstock, an English scholar, recently lectured in London upon the sword, detailing some of the countless legends and superstitions with which what weapon was surrounded in the days when fighting was the principal occupation of life. So highly was the sword esteemed that Muhammad in the Quran declared it to be the key to heaven and hell. The warrior or knight gave a name to this sword. He vowed at the altar never to draw it in a false cause. It was his companion and friend, and descended from father to son for many generations. It is no wonder that in those superstitious days, legends gradually clustered about it, and were believed. One sword, named Brother of the Lightning, had a golden hilt inscribed with magic words. In times of peace, these were said to be illegible, but before a battle, they glowed red as blood. It was believed, too, that a sword after long use acquired a life of its own. Many famous swords were said to utter cries before battle, and after a weapon had killed 50 men, it became blood-hungry and leaped out of its scabbard at the approach of a foe. Certain swords were said to refuse to give a wound in a bad cause. Among these was the brand Excalibur, which was given to King Arthur by a spirit in which Richard Coeur de Lion professed to own. The family of conveyors in England won their estates and have held them for centuries by virtue of their possession of an old falchion with which, according to tradition, they asserted that a knight, their ancestor, slew the famous dragon of Wentley. There are no knights nor dragons now, but the family still cherishes the falchion. In the East, a superstitious reverence is still paid to the sword. The daimyos of Japan, when they voluntarily surrendered, their rank kept, as a rule, ruled the wonderful blades which had been handed down from father to son in some cases for more than 1,000 years, and which had absorbed, as they believed, some of the character and life of the family that had owned them. We look upon these superstitions as idle and foolish. We live in an age of peace. A man goes out to fight the battle of life, not with his sword, but with his wit and tongue. Does he use these in no false cause, but only for truth and honor?
Wow, that's when you respected the sword and you stayed faithful to your words. Alrighty, stay tuned for more as we bring you some more of the Used Companion magazine. Bye-bye now. Okay, here we are with the Used Companion magazine, November 14th of 1895. And we're going to read to you Johnny's Stilts. And while we do that, I'll leave you with this picture right here that just says Dull Times. Okay, and the story will be read to you by Jennifer. Johnny's Stilts.
"Just look at that boy," exclaimed Grandma Peters with a contemptuous sniff, dropping her knitting in her lap, and peering out the window at Johnny, who was painfully stalking about the yard on stilts. "What's the sense of walking on them things, when it would be a sight easier to walk on the ground? It's perfectly ridiculous," and her knitting needles flew faster than before to make up for lost time. Mamma looked out the window, too, and laughed good-naturedly. "It does look rather useless, doesn't it, Grandma? But I guess boys always have a time of walking on stilts, and it's very innocent sort of fun if they don't get hurt. Grandma gave another little sniff. Boys are queer, she said. Johnny kept on practicing every day till in a short time he could go quite fast, while Grandma would look out now and then and say how foolish it was. One day it rained and rained from morning till night, and Johnny had to stay in the house because his everyday shoes leaked so badly, and Mama said it was too cold to go barefoot. Just before supper time, Mama discovered that the tea caddy was quite empty, and what was to be done? For how could Grandma get along without her cup of tea? "I'll go after it, Mama," said Johnny. "But you'll get your feet so wet," said Mama. "How? I won't get my feet wet," Johnny cried. And running out into the shed, he got his stilts and was soon stalking off into the wet grass. So Grandma had her cup of tea the same as ever, and after that she didn't say anything more about the stilts.
All right, there you go. There, he got so used to it and everything. He was a good practice, so he could do things with it.
And proved him wrong.
Yeah, proved them wrong and stuff, and she got her tea, and that's what matters. All right, stay tuned for more. We'll bring you some more. Bye-bye now. Okay, in this video here, we're going to give you 3 very short little stories. This is from the Youth Companion magazine of November 14th of 1895. The first story will be instructive. The second story will be a wise conclusion. And the third story will be the great day of all. The greatest day of all. So here we are with instructive. Read to you by Jennifer.
Everyone's standard of measurement is based upon his own rules. The people of the Southwest measure distances by looks, or hilltops. The European peasants by hours, walks, and the Arab by hours, rides. The loafer of the great cities has a standard of his own. Not long ago, a lady in the eastern city asked a man how far it was to a certain railroad station. She didn't observe until after she had spoken that he was somewhat under the influence of liquor. "All you've got to do, Mum," said the man, summoning his latent politeness, "is to keep right on down his street. It's just 5 beer saloons from here."
5 beer saloons from here, all right. That's a different way of measuring things. Good, all right. So, a wise conclusion is next.
Mercy Mehetable Martha Maria was always too fond of playing with fire. She burned her fingers and burned her toes, till once she scorched the tip of her nose. Then Mercy Mehetable Martha Maria said, "Never again will I play with fire."
Okay, that's a tongue twister.
Okay. Is that where they come up with that saying, "Don't play with fire"? Is that?
Yeah, probably. But it's a tongue twister now, isn't it? Okay, and now the greatest day of all.
Talk about Washington's birthday. Talk about Thanksgiving Day. Or even the Merry Christmas or 4th of July the gay. They're all very grand and glorious, but we know a grander one. I know, and Phillips knows, it comes just once in a lifetime, and that was today by chance. You can hardly guess what happened, why Philip put on pants. Wow, okay.
That's it?
It was so great, he put pants on.
That's the end of the story?
Yeah, that was it. That was the greatest day.
The greatest day, all right. Men put pants on, all right.
I guess we shouldn't ask so much of people.
I guess not. Well,
This would
maybe
be like
wore
if-
a skirt all the time.
This would be if Chief actually put pants on. That's what that would be.
All right, okay. A little bit of funniness, a little bit of fun. Okay, so now we know we measure by alcohol bars and we can put our pants on as we have a tongue twister. Alrighty, stay tuned for more as we bring you some more. Bye-bye now. Okay, here we are with Don't Forget That. In the November 14th, 1895, the Youth Companion magazine. They want to make sure, don't forget that. So this story will be read by Jennifer. Don't forget that. Just had to throw that in.
It is the business of a waiter to please his customers, and it ought to be part of a customer's business to be considerate and reasonable. A man who knew just what he wanted and liked to show that he knew it came down to the dining room of a hotel, according to the Kansas City Star, and while sipping at a tumbler of water proceeded to order his breakfast. "Bring me a pot of coffee," he said, "and mind it must be hot. Hot and strong. Don't forget to have it strong. And a sirloin steak, rare. Remember, have it rare and no fat. I can't bear the sight of fat in the morning." Yes, sir, no fat," replied the waiter. "And bring me some dry toast, hot, mind you. Hot toast, and have it made from stale bread. I don't want it toasted outside and soggy within. Now don't forget that." "No, sir. All right, sir. Not soggy inside, sir," echoed the waiter. "And some sliced tomatoes," continued the man. "And take the chopped ice off the tomatoes and drain them. I want them dry, you understand, dry. Now don't forget that." "All right, sir. Tomatoes must be dry. And let's see. Yes, bring me some fried eggs. Fresh eggs, you know, perfectly fresh. And I want them fried on one side only. Don't forget that. Yes, sir, fried on one side. Which side, sir?"
I think he had that one coming.
Yeah, that's cute. Giving specific details, might as well ask.
Yeah, and he makes sure he repeats everything twice, and stuff. So he deserved that answer. They didn't give his answer, did they?
No.
That may not have been so polite. Now don't forget that. Bye-bye now. Okay, here we are with the Youth Companion magazine, November 14th of 1895. And we're going to be reading Paying for the Honor. And this will be read to you by Jennifer.
In China, it is believed that people should pay according to their means. The one barber in Peking who understands the foreign mode of hair dressing charges a foreign minister $50. A secretary of legation 25 cents, and an unofficial foreigner 10 cents. Natives pay about half a cent for the same service. So says Mr. Holcomb in his book, The Real Chinaman, and he adds this bit of personal experience. In passing through Japan, I once had occasion to employ a Chinese chiropodist resident here. His charges, so he declared, were 5 cents to his fellow Chinese, 10 cents to an ordinary Japanese, and $50 to all other foreigners. In the course of the conversation, while he was at work, he said, "I hear that our Chinese minister came to this hotel today. Do you know who he came to see?" "Oh, yes," said I. "He came to call on me." "Then you must be an official," said the Chinaman. I modestly admitted such to be the fact, and the conversation drifted to other subjects. When the man's labors were concluded, he demanded $1 in the face of his own statement that his regular charge to all foreigners except Japanese was 50 cents, and he enforced his claim by this argument. "Supposing that China minister come see you, you belong all same he. You belong same he, you makey pay $1 all same. That belong plopper."
There you go. If you're going to do business, it should be the same for everybody. already. Otherwise, they need to go somewhere else that's cheaper. So there you go. Stay tuned for more stories as we bring them to you. Bye-bye now. Okay, here we are with the Youth Companion Magazine, November 14th of 1895. And we're going to read to you the story, The Girl's Song. It'll be read to you by Jennifer.
At the time of the terrible accident a year or two ago, at the coal mines near Scranton, Pennsylvania, several men were buried for 3 days, and all efforts to rescue them proved unsuccessful. A spectator wrote, "The majority of the miners were Germans. They were in a state of intense excitement caused by sympathy for the wives and children of the buried men and despair at their own balked efforts. A great mob of ignorant men and women assembled at the mouth of the mine on the evening of the third day, in a condition of high nervous tension which fitted them for any mad act. A sullen murmur arose that it was folly to dig farther, that the men were dead, and this was followed by cries of rage at the rich mine owners, who were in no way responsible for the accident. A hasty word or gesture might have produced an outbreak of fury. Standing near me was a little German girl, perhaps 11 years old. Her pale face and frightened glances from side to side showed that she fully understood the danger of that moment. Suddenly, with a great effort, she began to sing in a hoarse whisper, which could not be heard. Then she gained courage, and her sweet childish voice rang out in Luther's grand old hymn, familiar to every German from his cradle. A mighty fortress is our God. There was a silence like death. Then one voice joined the girls, and presently another and another, until from the whole great multitude rose the solemn cry, "With force of arms we nothing can, full soon are we o'erridden, but for us fights the godly man, whom God himself hath bidden. Ask ye his name, Christ Jesus is his name." A great quiet seemed to fall upon their hearts. They resumed their work with fresh zeal, and before morning the joyful cry came up from the pit that the men were found alive. Never was a word more in season than that child's.
Oh, that's nice. Look at that. Such a silent prayer. Well, a loud prayer. In different words and everything, but very religious. Who prayed for them to be safe. And they were. That's a good ending to a story. It's always good to have a happy ending. So stay tuned for more, and I'll bring you some more stories. Bye-bye now.
Take a lot of things for granted, huh?
Yeah, you guys take a lot of things for granted in these days. Okay, we're reading to you stories from the Youth Companion Magazine, November 14th of 1895. And this story is She Was Polite, being read to you by Jennifer.
The Cincinnati Tribune reports a somewhat improbable but mildly amusing anecdote of a dentist and his servant. It happened, as the story runs, that on the very day of the servant's engagement by the dentist, she had a tooth filled at another office just round the street corner. Her new master gave her a long and minute set of instructions, laying particular stress upon the importance of treating callers politely. "My patients are many of them wealthy and aristocratic," he said, "and besides, people are apt to be in a pretty nervous and sensitive state when they have occasion to see a dentist. The least thing will annoy them." "Yes, sir," said the new girl. "They may be suffering terribly." "Yes, sir." The servant turned out to be a very good one, faithful, attentive, and competent. In the course of a few months, however, the doctor began to miss some of his old patients, and to wonder a good deal over the frequency with which some of them failed to keep their engagements. One day he was talking the matter over with his wife at the table. "Is it the lady with the green carriage and the yellow-legged footman you mean, sir?" inquired the girl, who had been listening. "Yes, that's the one, Mrs. R. She hasn't been here for months," answered the doctor. "Yes, sir," said the girl. "You were out when she called the last time. You are sure you treated her politely?" "Oh, yes, sir. I sent her round the corner to Dr. Blank. He's a first-class dentist." The doctor nearly choked with surprise. "Oh, he's a good dentist," repeated the girl with charming simplicity. "I have often been to him. And you have sent others to him?" "Yes, sir. I always send them to him when you are not in. It's only polite, sir. The dentist is picking up his practice again, and the too polite servant was found a new place."
I'm sending all the business somewhere else. Come on, that's not fair. Wow. Okay, that's a good story to put in the paper compared to some of them that we've read here, recently. But yeah, don't take the business.
Between polite and referral.
Yeah, yeah. Just don't give your business to the neighbor. Alrighty, stay tuned for more stories and we'll bring them right to you. Bye-bye now. Okay, so we just finished with that interesting one of the monkey and the cobra. And now we're going to read to you, and this is from the Youth Companion magazine, November 14th of 1895, The Awakening in the Forest. And this will be read to you by Jennifer.
Over the steep the day begins to rise, to gild the serious tops of pine and fir, whose answering signals leap from spur to spur. As blush on blush lights up the empty skies, now the finch whistles, now the thrush replies. Foot behind foot the forest creatures stir, and brushing light through bay and juniper. Each to its haunt and loved domination hies. How sweet to these the fresh-faced opening day, sweet though the dark and sweet the dreamless rest. Earth and its aims and joyful cares are best, and the bright dawn is best for such as they. Newborn they wake, all ignorance and play, by no past griefs or future fears oppressed. Leave the green floor their nimble limbs have pressed, and through the sheltering covert bound away.
All right, an interesting story. And it's just about the forest waking up in the morning. So, and I definitely understand that because when my son was a junior hunter, I had to go hunting with him and stuff. And I would enjoy getting in there real early in the morning where it's completely peaceful, and then the birds and the turkeys and everything. Of course, the turkeys would scare you when they fly off the tree. But it was really nice when all the animals were waking up and starting to move around. So I can kind of understand this story. It's a really nice story. Okay, stay tuned for more and we'll bring you some more. Bye-bye now. Okay, The Monkey and the Cobra, if you can only imagine, is in the Youth Companion magazine. Should be an interesting story. And this is of November 14th of 1895. The title is nice. It leaves you interested.
Questionable.
Questionable, okay.
Yeah,
Questionable
let's do that one. I
interested
know
what
it
the
is.
story is really all about. Remember, when we read these stories to you, we're hearing it for the first time ourselves. Okay, so Monkey and the Cobra. Read to you by Jennifer.
The sagacity which many animals display when dealing with snakes is one of the remarkable things in nature. An intelligent puppy knows somehow that snakes may be venomous, and treats them accordingly. If he attacks a snake, he does it with a series of quick jumps and recoils, and continuously jerks his head upward to avoid a possible dart from the snake. A horse kills a snake by leaping upon it with all 4 feet kept together so that the snake's fangs can find nothing but the horny hoof to strike into. The knowledge of these special tactics is a part of the instinct of all animals. A correspondent of the Chicago Inter-Ocean gives an interesting description of a monkey's attack on a deadly cobra in India. The serpent was coiled up on the ground under a tree. The monkey slowly left his perch in the forks of the tree and quietly, with great caution, moved down toward it until he had approached within about 2 feet of the reptile. He looked like a solemn old man, curiously moving his head from side to side, as if closely expecting the object before him. Then he took a firmer hold of a tree with one arm, wrapped his tail closely around the trunk. He reached forth his hand until it was within 6 or 8 inches of the snake, and then quickly withdrew it. I was excited and wondered if he knew the dangerous character of his adversary. Was he playing unknowingly with death? The hand of the monkey again moved toward the venomous reptile. Was he going to seize the creature? Suddenly, like a lightning flash, the monkey grasped the cobra around the neck, close to the head, in such a manner that it could not bite, while the snake's body encircled the monkey's arm. An astonishing scene followed. The snake hissed loudly, the monkey clattered and screeched, and danced and leaped in frantic delight. He would stop his wild contortions and seriously examine the snake's head and eyes and protruding tongue, and again grin and dance about. After he had enough of this sport, he began to rub the head of the serpent on the hard ground, and continued to do this, with repeated serious inspections of his work, until he had rubbed the head of the cobra entirely off. Then, with much gleeful chattering, he dropped the still writhing body and scampered away to join his companions in a neighboring grove. Oh my God, is that psychotic?
Well, it looked like he just wanted to play toy and have some fun, but it didn't end up that way, did it now?
That is just so bad.
All right, well, you never know when you read a story what you're going to get out of it. Hope you all enjoyed this story. Stay tuned for more. We'll bring you some more. Bye-bye now. Okay, here we are with the Youth Companion Magazine, November 14th of 1895, and we're going to read to you Interesting Testimony. So, the title sounds interesting. So here we go, read to you by Jennifer.
Monsieur Littre, a French scholar, whose great work is the Dictionary of French Language, on which he labored for many years, was a positivist in religion. He believed neither in the existence of God nor in the mortality of man. When in 1871 he was admitted to the French Academy, the celebrated Dupanloup, Bishop of Orleans, protested against his admission by withdrawing from his seat. Legouve, another member of the Academy, a famous author of novels, plays, and poems, and also a free-thinking agnostic, once told an anecdote about literature which attracted the attention of the editor of the New York Christian Advocate. He wrote the Legouve asking if the anecdote was true. The following came in reply: "The history is absolutely correct." This is the story. Legouve says that shortly after Littre's daughter was born, and he said to his wife, "My dear, you are a good Christian. Bring up your daughter in the ways of religion and I think it says pity, which you have always followed. But I must exact one condition, and that is that when she is 15 years of age, you will bring her to me. I will then explain my views to her, and she can choose for herself." The mother accepted the condition. Years rolled on. The 15th birthday of one child soon came, and the mother entered her husband's study. You remember what you said to me, and what I promised, she said. Your daughter is 15 years old today. She is now ready to listen to you. With the respect and confidence due to the best of fathers, shall I bring her in? Why, certainly, replied Litter. But for what special reason? To explain to her my views. Oh, no, my dear, no. You have made of her a good, affectionate, simple, straightforward, bright, and happy creature. Happy, yes. That is the word that in a pure being describes every virtue. And you fancy that I would cover all the happiness and purity with my ideas. Pshaw. My ideas are good enough for me. Who can say that they would be good enough for her? Who can say that they would not destroy or at least damage your work? Bring her in, so that I may bless you in her presence for all that you have done for her, and so that she may love you more than ever. I too, added Legoux, at the close of his little anecdote, had around my believers whom I love, and I should consider myself a criminal if I troubled their religious convictions with my doubts and my objections, especially when I know that they find in those convictions nothing but joy, consolation, and virtue.
Oh, that was nice. That's right from the heart. That was a sweet story. Very nice. All right, be sure to sub me, join me as a friend, and we'll bring you some more. Bye-bye now. Okay, here we are with the Youth Companion magazine. And look at that. Only $15? Well, 10, 12, and 15, 16, and 18 for an overcoat back then. Isn't that something? Kind of cute.
Yeah, they have cloth diapers.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Even advertising for cloth diapers. How many of you remember that?
Free from starch.
Yeah. Yeah, but back then, instead of baby powder, they used to use starch. So it's funny for that to be in the ad. Okay, we're going to read to you Walking Over Hot Lava. Read to you by Jennifer.
During the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in July last, the stream of molten lava flowing down the flank of the volcano on the side toward Naples buried a large section of carriage road by which tourists ascended the mountain. About 2 months later, a correspondent of the Companion visited Naples and climbed Vesuvius. At the point where the lava had cut across the road, the mountain guides had constructed a footpath over the crust which had already formed on the surface of the stream of molten rock. The experience of crossing was a most interesting one. The cooled lava, broken into masses of all sizes and presenting grotesquely corded forms, cracked and slipped under the feet, and its sharp points and edges cut the shoes as a heap of broken knife blades might have done. Occasionally, a blast of heat rising from under his feet reminded the traveler of what was beneath him, while here and there large, ragged holes vomited steam and sulphurous vapors into his face. In several places, one of which was but a few feet from the path, the molten lava was still gushing from rents in the crust. It flowed downward with a creeping motion, its surface being curiously roughened by seams running crosswise in such a manner as to give the red-hot mass something the appearance of a gigantic burning worm. Several rods in length and 20 or 30 feet broad, issuing out of the black side of the mountain and slowly twisting its way along with successive contractions and expansions of its glowing segments. The surface was already hardening while it flowed, and a stone thrown upon it, although making a dent, rebounded and skipped along without sinking into the fiery paste. One could stand within a yard of the edge and thrust the point of a cane or umbrella into the moving lava. The heat that struck the hands and face was not greater than that encountered at the open door of a furnace or close to a gate of burning coal.
Wow. I'll tell you what, that's someplace I wouldn't be hanging around. It's a very dangerous place. I mean, I was stationed in Hawaii for a couple of years and stuff, and they had a lot of volcanoes and everything, and I come close to looking, but boy, I would never get that close, and definitely wouldn't go and be sticking where some of it's coming out. Way too dangerous, that's for sure. But stay tuned and we'll bring you some more stories. Be sure to sub me. Bye-bye now. Okay, here we are in the Youth Companion Magazine, November 14th, 1895. And we're going to read to you the story, True to His Reputation. And it'll be read by Jennifer.
The Washington Post prints a story which it says used to be told of Martin Van Buren, who was noted for his diplomatic unwillingness or inability to answer a plain question in plain language. A party of politicians were talking about this characteristic on the deck of a Hudson River steamboat, Van Buren himself being in the cabin. "Oh, the matter has been greatly exaggerated," one man said. "Mr. Van Buren can talk as explicitly as anybody when there is no reason for doing otherwise." "Well," said another, "I will wager a dinner for the company that you may ask Van Buren the simplest question that can be thought of, and he will evade a direct answer. You may tell him why you ask it, and that a bet is depending on his reply." The proposal was accepted, and one of the men, who knew Van Buren well, was deputed to go down and try the experiment. "Mr. Van Buren," he began, "some gentlemen on the upper deck have been accusing you of being chronically non-committal, and one of them has laid a wager that you will not give a plain answer to the simplest question. Now then, allow me to ask you, where does the sun rise?" Mr. Van Buren looked thoughtfully, hesitated a moment, and then said, "The terms east and west are conventional, but—" "That will do," interrupted the questioner. "We have lost the bet."
Oh, lost of the bet. All right, be sure to sub me, join me as a friend, and we'll bring you some more stories. Bye-bye now. Okay, here we are with the Youth Companion Magazine, November 14th, 1895. And this story here is A Costly Breakfast. Okay, can you imagine costly breakfast way back in 1895?
What was it, 25 cents?
I don't know, but the title's interesting, so we're bringing it to you, and Jennifer will read it to you.
It is well known that some of the most famous and popular of literary and musical compositions have brought their authors little or no compensation. The case of Milton's Paradise Lost, which the author sold for £5, is frequently cited as an example of this fact, but is not necessary to go so far back for equally striking examples. Quite recently, a story to this point has been told on good authority in Paris. Some years ago, 3 men, all highly gifted but improvident and unfortunate, were walking the streets of Paris together, penniless and hungry. "What wouldn't I give for a nice breakfast?" said one of them. "What wouldn't I give for a breakfast even if it weren't nice?" said another. "Any kind of breakfast would do me, provided it was a breakfast," said the third. "How much must we have with which to get our breakfast?" asked the first. "We ought to have 10 francs, said another. 10 francs or $2 would have provided the 3 youths with an excellent breakfast. $2. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, see?
25. You were too modern.
Big deal, $2.
You were too modern for this story.
"I have an idea. Here's a music publisher's come along," said one. "Sir," said he to the publisher, "we wish to sell you a song, of which one of us has written the words and another the air, and I will sing it. as I am the only one of the three who has any voice." The music publisher made a grimace. "Well, go on. We'll see if your song is good for anything." One of the young men sang. Said the publisher. "It isn't much of a song, a simple little thing, but I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll give you 15 francs for it." The three young men looked significantly at each other. They had not expected as much. They handed the publisher the manuscript, took the $3, and went and ate them all up at a neighboring restaurant. The author of the words was Alfred de Musset, the composer Hippolyte Maupin, and the singer Gilbert Duprez. The song, which was entitled Connaissez-vous dans Barcelone, had an immense popularity and brought the publisher 40,000 francs. The breakfast which these three young men ate was therefore perhaps the most expensive one that has ever eaten.
Oh my God.
Oh, that really sucks.
That's when you don't know the value of what you really have. That's the lesson of that.
That is so sad.
I know it's sad.
Oh my God, 40,000
breakfast.
and they gave it up for 15?
They gave it up for breakfast. No, for 15 francs.
For breakfast, when
Yes,
it was 40,000
$3 worth.
that they gained.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's sad.
And that's back then. So can you imagine how much that would be in dollars today?
Uh-huh.
That's unreal.
Well, 10 francs it said was $2.
Yep. Yep.
Oh my gosh.
All right. That's in them days too. Remember that.
Yeah.
Not in today. This is over. That's like 119 years ago. So.
Gosh.
Yeah. So know the value of what you have, and hold on to it. All right. Stay tuned. We'll bring you some more stories. Bye-bye now. Okay, now we're looking in the Youth Companion magazine, November 14th of 1895, and we were looking at this commercial, and she says, look at this. There's powder toothpaste. So I wanted to bring this to you so you could turn around and check it out and stuff, because when we were a kid, that's what we had. But she was amazed to find what was written on it and what they had to say, which was, no, it's not supposed to be harmful to you.
It's tooth powder. Keeps the teeth white, the breath sweet, and the gums healthy. Contains no grit, no acid, nor anything injurious.
Which makes you wonder what was there before. Okay, so that goes for that commercial. But we're going to read this story, A Unique Prescription. Okay.
A Virginia gentleman, during an athletic exercise one day, felt a sudden pain and, fearing some internal injury, sent for a Negro living on the plantation who made pretensions to medical skill to prescribe for him. He, having sagely investigated the case, says Healthy Home prepared and administered a dose with the utmost confidence of a speedy cure. No relief being obtained, however, a regular physician was sent for who, on arriving, inquired of the Negro what he had given. Sambo promptly responded, "Rosin and alum, sir." "What did you give them for?" continued the doctor. "Why," replied Sambo, "de alum to draw de parts together, and de rosin to solder them."
All right. There you go. So you have a couple of interesting little stories here, one being an ad, of course, for toothpaste and stuff. So be sure to sub me, join me as a friend, as we bring you some more stories. Bye-bye.